bad trade paperback, flocking to the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy, Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, joined once again by the amazing, the enigmatic, the ever-talented Wells Thompson. Wells, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Wow, that was an exciting lineup of people that I'm sure people are disappointed that I'm not. They really thought for saying, oh, we're getting Chip Zdarsky? I was excited too.
He was definitely a fun guy to talk to. I'm not going to lie, it was the most nervous I've been for an interview since my first ever one before I ever started the channel. It's interesting. That being said, Wells, we are here to talk about you, your book, your work, and all the good things you do. So just to start with, as we have many times before, for the folks out there watching now or watching in the next 14 days who want to support your campaign, who've maybe never seen your face, never heard your name, who is Wells Thompson?
Wells Thompson is a independent comic writer and freelance editor, responsible chiefly, or at least partially, for a lot of Kickstarter books, Mechaton, Frankenstein the Unconquered, The Cat Skin and the Rose, as well as a number of anthologies that I've either created or been a part of, Descent into Dread, both of the Biovisibility anthologies, and From the Static being the main ones.
Amazing. So all in all, how many of your works, how many of your comics works exist out there, have been published, and how many of those are your own stories?
I mean, they're all my own stories. Some very short-sighted editors have forgotten that I'm available for work for hire. But no, I haven't gotten the opportunity to work for hire yet. I would love to. But yeah, as far as stuff's out there, I have a science fiction action series, Mechaton. I've got an action horror series, Frankenstein the Unconquered. And I've got a bunch of horror books, Descent into Dread, and some stories, like I said, in From the Static, as well as some oddball stuff here and there. I always have to sort of remind myself that the vast majority of what I've written is not out in the world yet. And as much as I'm trying to speed that process along, there's quite a backlog.
I mean, that is an exciting prospect. And I hope... No, I don't have to hope. It'll happen. I look forward to when it all comes out, and however it rolls out. Behind me on my wall here, as you have on your wall just over your right shoulder.
Over this way.
You've got Frankenstein the Unconquered, which is basically your retelling of some of the Frankenstein stories, as well as your own content that you've created using the character.
I would say it's an unofficial sequel to the novel. It's the same character of the Frankenstein's monster, continuing off from when he apparently commits suicide in the book. He gets frozen. He eventually thaws out and finds a world that is very different, but a lot closer to what he is. But even then, he can't really escape the violence of his past.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, it's also a love letter to Universal horror and Mad Max and Terminator and 80s action movies that we absolutely adore. So that series wears a lot of hats.
Yes, it does, and it does them well. Adriano is in the comments on YouTube saying Mechaton and Frankenstein the Unconquered are awesome. Couldn't agree more. That just to briefly touch on it, that brings us to Mechaton, which is your mech anime, modern stuff, wild, weird, fun, gets involved with alien technology and all the good things. So you've kind of covered a lot, and your new book that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to just pop it up.
Could not be more different, correct.
Exactly. So it's called Smut, which is kind of on the nose, but I mean, if that's where you like
Indeed. That was the point.
And yeah, as readers will be able to see, or as viewers, I should say, will be able to see, it is very much so a 3-part slice of life comedy with some not safe for fun action in it, lots of sex, lots of fun times, all the good things.
Indeed.
And yeah, it's quite the departure from what you normally create, and also the team with which you've created is fairly different as well.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to start with, Wells, tell us about Smut.
Yeah, Smut is a erotic comedy, not say, or a slice of life, kind of romantic erotic comedy thing that follows 3 friends as they try and sort out their messy love lives and rely on each other and try and sort through, an absolutely a comedic take on everyday problems that we have in our relationships, whether it's first date jitters in the case of Dakota, in the case of this first issue, a long-term relationship where the dynamics are subtly changing and you're trying to come to terms with that, or a relationship that is on the rocks and requires a lot of attention to be able to bring up and out from either you're going to break up or you're going to come out stronger. This first issue focuses on Dakota. She's a personal trainer. She's a lot of fun. It's I can't pick favorites, but this issue was one of my favorites to write just because it was so driven by this sort of giddy energy of going out on a first date, but setting up parameters for yourself, but being surprised at every turn and eventually having to double back and say, are those parameters worth it? I don't know. I might just have to sleep with this guy. It's a ton of fun. It has a lot of fun, nervous energy to it. The character herself is fantastic. It's definitely one of the most liberating things that I've written in terms of just, I got to, I didn't have to worry a lot about genre trappings or anything like that. I went with what felt natural. You mentioned the creative team, and this is my first time working with Bianca Milanez. She's doing the art on this, which you can see fantastic.
Sorry, I'm just ripping past it all here.
You're good.
Back up.
No, it's very expressive. It's simple, but not in a way that's overly distracting or anything. One of the sort of goals that we had going into it was we wanted to do, a book called Smut. We wanted to do erotica, but we didn't want to do it in a way where every panel feels like, fan service. We wanted to make we wanted to make the characters feel like characters, and when things escalate, they escalate naturally. I'm also co-writing this with my wife, Brianna Thompson. This is her first comic. She is a fantastically smart individual. She is a microbiologist in her day job. Yeah, very smart. She does cancer research, but she grew up on AO3 and fanfiction.net, doing /fic, and so has a bit of a taste for it, and was a really wonderful creative partner for this. On top of that, DC Hopkins on letters. He's always fantastic. Krista Harroder is editing. Brenda Snell is my designer, and then I've got Eileen Wajeja and Aliza Romboli as variant cover artists. And super stellar team. Most everyone here, first time that I'm working with them, the exception of Brenda and Krista. I could not be more thrilled to have this team and creative energy behind this book.
I love it. Then I guess one thing I wanted to ask, and it had come to mind almost immediately, and I think it's going to be my big question. So for those tuning in, I'm getting to this early, so after, just click the first link below, go back the book, and then you can do whatever you want with the rest of your night. The question I wanted to ask you, Wells, was normally speaking, when writers talk about how to write and their process and their mentality, they often write is what is interesting to them and what they're contemplating and the sort of things that they want to check out. Now, previously, you've done some really action-y stuff, dealt with things like horror, but with Slice of Life, you're allowing yourself to get fairly personal, talk about things that you may have experienced in your own life, that your friends, your partner may have come across. So what I wanted to basically ask was, with Smut, while you're writing it and working with your partner, what kind of stuff are you drawing on from, say, your own life and inspired by your own life, and that are you exploring maybe even on a hypothetical level through this book?
Yeah, I think I was drawing on a lot of it was just our friendship dynamics. Sort of the I knew that I wanted to expand it out into a book that's driven by sex, where that's the major action. But it really started in the preview pages in the cafe with the three leads, just kind of hashing out their drama, and sort of I built it based on those kind of friendship dynamics that I drew a little bit from real life people that I know, and as well as just like there's not a one-to-one analog or anything, but just those kind of conversations that I've had, as well as things that I consistently overhear from my wife, who has no filter, will tell me anything.
Right on.
But yeah, just in general, I've always had mostly women as friends, and once they've decided that like you are part of the group, you're not a threat, tend to open up wild, like way more than you expect them to. And I wanted to capture that energy of just like everything is on the table, nothing is off limits, we're just going to talk about anything. And out of that sort of grew the individual conflicts of Rita thinking she needs to break up with her boyfriend, Jess struggling with her girlfriend wanting to sort of exert a little bit more control in the relationship, and then Dakota trying to exercise self-control. And all three of them kind of, I won't spoil anything, but they get their happy ending. This is a very positive book.
I mean, that's good, and with the title as it is, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So, well, something that, as a comic reader and someone who likes indie, I can't help but go and compare to is, I can't help but compare this to Sunstone. And in the write-up, you even say that people who like Sunstone, and there's another series you mentioned,
Money Shot, Giant Days, Sex Criminals, that kind of, Giant Days is sort of the outlier there, but yeah, that sort of verve of indie comic, yeah, absolutely. I've been immersed for like 5 years now. I've been immersed in Kickstarter culture, which, as you know, you know, can't go 2 feet without tripping over a fan service cover or something like that. And like, you know, that's great. And
we're all adults here, totally fine.
And like, I like a black bag cover as much as anyone else. And I think that there's definitely a place for that. But every time I go in on, or most of the time when I go in on a comic that has that kind of thing, the interiors wind up being, it range from either like it's a pretty bog standard plot and the fan service cover was that, just a fan service cover, or it's a pretty normal story and there's like a couple of pages of nudity and sex thrown in as like something to point to as a hook, which again, you know, all adults, some people enjoy that, that's fine. It always sort of I always feel like there's missed potential there. I feel like just a good action scene, like good action scenes help flesh out the characters. You don't feel like I'm watching something cool. You feel like you're learning something new about the people involved. A good sex scene should do the same thing, and that's why I reference Sunstone and Money Shot and Sex. Those are comics that are not just using sex as like a fun hook, but it is an integral part of the action. And every time it's on the page, you're learning something new. It's moving the plot forward in some way. It's treating the subject matter as something worth talking about, not just something worth flashing up to sell a book.
Yeah, like it, and I think that's what I appreciate, and that's knowing how you create and the level of thought that goes into your work, and now knowing that your partner is a microbiologist and is clearly highly intelligent and thus probably even more so thorough and detailed and all that compared to yourself. I am excited for the rest of the series, but I wanted to draw attention to one shot that thankfully is censored in the Kickstarter, because I think it brings up everything sort of that we've talked about, and that's this. So in the particular scene, Rita here, who's 26, you can see she is petrified with what's going on as someone goes down on her.
I feel like if you're not willing to talk about bad sex, then you're missing the conversation. you're missing a big part of the conversation.
Right, exactly. And like, I think being able to discuss moments like that and share that among friends is like a big part of being an adult and finding yourself, your sexuality, what you like, what you don't like. So for me, like, this moment was amazing, and I like that the repercussion here is that Jess is comforting Jess or Rita, to be like, hey, like, you know what, it sucks that this happened to you.
Which is again like why I didn't feel like I could do this book about three guys in a coffee shop, because this conversation would never happen, and if it did, this would not be the reaction of like instant solidarity. But yeah, no, I a big part of what drove the book is sort of I wanted to highlight how important communication and like a solid foundation of trust is in a healthy relationship. Sex aside, like even included especially, but like even putting that aside, it's important to have that. And so showing the consequences of this is what happens when people aren't talking to each other, when you're just sort of letting things happen. It's, and biting your tongue. And that is issue 3 is Rita's issue, where we really see her story fleshed out, but where they're at in their relationship is not a great place, and they need to do a lot of talking, a lot of soul searching to figure out where to go from there.
I dig it. And this is now why I will directly compare this to Sunstone, because for those out there, again, watching live with us now, thanks for tuning in, or watching in the next 14 days while the campaign is live. One thing that Sunstone did good, while being absolutely pornographic, not for children, if you're under the age of majority in whatever country you're from, don't read that book. Don't worry about it. I didn't say anything, move on. But for those who have read it and enjoyed it, the thing that Sunstone did so well was, yes, have naughty, sexy fun times, but within that, talk about the trust and all the relationship building or destroying that can do if you don't communicate.
Oh God. Volume 2 is harrowing. If you read volume 1, it's brilliant. Volume 2, like, be prepared for it, because I was not.
No, it's, if I'm not mistaken, Mercy starts with volume 5, right? Or is it 6?
That's when like the Mercy arc starts in earnest. Volume 2 is like the first mention of that, though.
Yeah.
Get narrative. And it's grisly.
Yeah, but for me, it was the end of the second volume of Sunstone. How that ended was just emotionally devastating. Which I think, just from the preview pages that are, people can just go read online. They can see the way that these 3 women talk to each other. how they bind, I think you've started the potential for that level of emotional devastation.
Maybe if we, if somehow I am convinced to continue the story, or like continue with this group of friends, and we get a Smut too, Electric Boogaloo.
Please call it that now.
Then like maybe it'll head into that territory. But definitely for this first one, I wanted it to feel like a win, and partially that's because I needed a win. Just where I was, this was in probably February, March, or April of last year that I was writing this for the first draft of this, and I really needed like something positive in my life, and this was the thing that kind of lifted me up for that. So if you're if you're the kind of person that wants to know what they're in for, like I promise you get your happy endings at the end of this. All the characters kind of get to experience the better part of the what could potentially be maybe not dicey situations, but like it's complex. It requires a lot of conflict and talking, but at the end, everyone winds up happy.
Awesome. So one thing that I'm very interested in then is, obviously you've written many, many, many action scenes and fight scenes and gore and blood and swords and all the fun. This book, other than the naughty kind of action, which doesn't seem to happen super frequently, which is again a part of what I think is going to be great about this, is a lot of, from what I could see, talking and sitting in a booth, which has got to be the most boring stuff, like eye candy wise, because it's just people like sitting around and talking. So what was it like planning that all out, and was it even really a consideration? Because it's not like, other than if two people hug, right, they have to be near each other to be able to physically do it. Like, there's not a lot of choreographing. So what was that like compared to your other books?
Sure. I think I naturally just sort of plan and like write sex scenes sort of in the same way that I write fight scenes. It's a culmination of sort of the consequences of what has happened up to that point, and that requires people talking, that requires build up and setup and everything else. So I'm very used to like making conversation happen up to a point where action happens. But also I'm very used to making conversations look interesting and dynamic as best that I can, or at least try to convey that. I am very grateful that I work with some really talented artists who make that easy for me. They make the page look good no matter what. But like I'm very conscious of when it's just a couple people talking, 2 or 3 people, and it's just going back and forth, trying not to have it just be heads going back and forth at the same angles. As you read through those sample pages, there's a background gag of Jess, and this was to inform Jess's character of just kind of effortlessly getting whatever she wants, even no matter how infeasible it is. But she waves this guy over, orders some coffee, orders some coffee with oat milk, I think. He tells her, we don't have that. And she doesn't have to say anything. He's just like, okay, I'm going to go get it. And you can see he's running off in the background. He comes back with the oat milk. He makes it and gives it to her. And that just sort of all happens as not background filler, but sort of ways to make the conversation move along, give the audience something to, or give the reader something to kind of look at and see a story unfold on top of the story that we're being told through the dialogue. So yeah, I'm always very conscious of like, it would be boring to just watch heads go back and forth and talk about, anything. If you're a really skilled, dialogue writer, you can make dialogue, you can make those scenes passable just by making it feel witty and funny. But it's a visual medium. It's always better to have something to look at. So the expressions are very important. The way they move their bodies is very important. and the things going on in the background is very important. So I'm always conscious of that.
Love it. Yeah. Real quick, from YouTube, Steve White says, "Good evening, gentlemen."
Good
Well,
evening,
hello,
Steve.
So one thing I did want to ask now, the book does center around these three women and their experiences, their romantic lives, sex lives, dating, and all that in between. And you yourself, Wells, are not a lady. Now, you've mentioned you've written this book with your partner,
Yes.
but also the rest of the team. Oh, we're going to keep going down here. So many bonus things, which we're going to get to really soon. The rest of the team, so we have yourself.
Yes.
We have your partner.
Indeed.
Did your partner draw this as well?
No, so that was a mutual friend of ours. His name is Michael. He's a really talented artist. Worked with Brianna. That's how they met. And
Oh, cool.
Yeah. If you scroll down just a little bit, it's at Funk Tech Niche. If you want to look at their work, maybe commission something from him, I would highly recommend it. He's the only person that I would trust to draw my cats, which doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, it is. Brianna was instrumental in bringing this all together for sure. Part of it was I'm always very careful and want to make sure I'm not overstepping any boundaries or misrepresenting anybody or anything. There is, like, in issue 2, there's a lesbian couple. That was something that we had to really, like, consider as we wrote it, of like, I don't want, even if it's done really well, I wouldn't feel comfortable without several layers of people telling me, like, yeah, no, this is done well, or this is what could be done different, or,
Right on.
It's very easy to, without realizing it, fall into a pitfall, fall into a stereotype, fall into, like, misrepresent something small that you wouldn't notice because you don't have the experience of that.
Yeah.
So bringing on Brianna as a co-writer, she is a bisexual, genderqueer, but, female-facing person who has dated women and men. Having Krista on as an editor, who is, again, pansexual. Bianca is, to my knowledge, dates women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just, like, several layers of people that can tell me, hey, this is good and positive representation, or what the hell are you doing? And yeah, I try and look for that in all of my work, but especially when it's really heavily focused on, the experiences of marginalized groups.
Beautiful. I love it. That was, basically, like, without me directly saying it, you got right to it. And which is why I think I also appreciate the spread of people that you have working with you.
I also naturally sort of spring toward, like, I know my perspective really well at this point. I've got a good handle on it. So, I'm not as a way of, like, excluding like who I want to work with or anything, but I think I just naturally go for, like, in most of the works that I've done, the artists have been women, largely queer women. I don't know if that's, like, a pattern or if that's either way. But just, like, I want to look for people who have different life experience with me or than me, because comics is such a collaborative process that I really want someone to be able to bring a perspective I didn't consider into the conversation. I don't think we benefit from from a bunch of people who look exactly the same, kind of soundboarding off of each other and going, "This is a good idea. Yeah, cool."
Perfect. No, I love it. And I think one, it's very important because you don't want to put yourself in a little sound chamber and just have everyone say yes because boobies. Like, it's important that, like, because of the content that you're creating, especially being slice of life about romance and sex, that can get extremely personal for people real fast, and people can get basically caught up in it, and insert themselves into it. So you'd want to obviously show it as well as possible, as carefully as possible, while still having a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of which,
it's the kind of project that requires a lot of vulnerability. So I already knew that I needed to, be willing and open to sort of present someone with a script and have them implicitly sort of judge me for it. But yeah, on top of that, again, I think bringing in different perspectives just makes the comic richer. I wouldn't want anyone, as personal of a story as it is at times, I wouldn't want anyone to come in and think, "Oh, I'm just reading this guy's like weird diary." That's not the vibe I wanted to bring.
100%. Well, from what I have read of it, it doesn't feel like that, so that's the good news. And from what 383 other people have thought, they kind of agree with you. So your goal for this in Canadian dollars, please be aware this is in Canadian dollars. So the goal was 10,960 Canadian, which I'm guessing is 8,500 or 8,000 US.
8,000 US, yeah.
8,000 US. So you're probably sitting pretty at 8,900 or 9,000 US.
That's
something.
That is literally exactly at $8,900. Yes.
Hey,
you did some very good conversion there.
Thank you. So you're already past your goal by 20%.
10%, but yeah.
Yeah, you're doing darn good. The book is back. This is now happening. What I wanted to ask first was, for the folks out there who've maybe never backed a Kickstarter, who are nervous to pledge money, one, I just wanted to bring up the fact that it is fully backed already. So join 383 other people in getting this book. But I wanted to ask, what state is the book currently in?
The book is... So the sample pages are all that is complete of the book. Bianca has started on thumbnailing the rest of the book. When it became apparent that we were going to fund, I gave her the green light, and she has gotten started on that. I think she's got 6 or 7 pages thumbnailed from starting yesterday or the day before. We're planning on getting 3 more pages more or less completed before the end of the campaign.
Nice.
And then moving on to do the rest of it. But yeah, we sort of gamed out how long it would take in the worst case scenario, and that looking at that, it was something like October was going to be when we sent it out, like actually sent out the physical copies to people. As it stands right now, I've learned not to make any promises, but I would say it'll probably be considerably sooner than that.
Perfect. I love it. Steve White says, excellent. Congratulations. And Adriano says, that's quite the haul. Well done.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that.
Agreed. Yeah. Now we're past halftime here. So we've kind of blown past what I would normally want to ask. So if someone wants to join 383 other people in supporting Smut, peer pressure them into it, what would be their options? What can they get? Can you walk us through it as I click this page and it loads?
Absolutely. So we've got digital copy, and that has been, we've never had a campaign that's done more digital copies than Smut already. 181 backers. It's almost half. So we have the $7 that gets you the comic. For an additional $5 as an add-on, you can get the deluxe that gets you some back matter, some some back matter, cover gallery, and some other stuff. We have a flash sale going on right now, so if you're seeing this and you're on the fence, grab it. It's only for
2
one
left.
No, there's
28 left.
28 left. Yeah, 20 left, but only 24 more hours or so to get on top of that. So physical copy, that is normally 14. For the flash sale, it's 11. That gets you the A cover, as well as, I should mention, there's a digital indie bundle. Some of my peers were gracious enough to volunteer their books out so people could read them for borderline free. For $1 for pledging any amount to the campaign, you get all of these books. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so that's Noir, that's Hush Ronin, Talgard? Yeah, Talgard, Tome 1, Freaky Tales number 1, and Spider Squirrel. We're going to add more to those, by the way, as we get more stretch goals, so keep that in mind. Those are the basic tiers. We've also got my favorite thing that we've brought so far, which is the starter kit. This gets you the book, as well as a bunch of the add-ons for a discounted rate. So you get the I Heart Smut sticker, you get the tiny cactus enamel pin and sticker. And if you're having trouble reading that, it says, "I will be a better person for you." That's a joke. I love it a lot. Let's see. After that, we've got our variant covers. So that would be the Thirst Trap cover by Eileen Wajaja, as well as the Gym Queen cover by Elisa Romboli. We also have a Not Safe for Work version of the Gym Queen cover, and it is fantastic. Elisa did such a good job on these covers. I cannot stress that enough. Holy crap.
Love it.
The Not Safe for Work starter kit. So similar to the regular starter kit, but you get the Not Safe for Work cover as well as an additional print. Yeah. So
right on.
We try and do levels for everyone depending on both their interest and what kind of stuff they might want, and how much they want to spend. Some people are looking for an excuse to spend more, and we are happy to give it to them. But we're going to make it work for a while at the same time. And then we have our everything tier, which we do every campaign. $100 gets you all the merch, or this campaign related add-ons and covers, as well as signing. I will sign all of your books on top of everything. And yeah, that one's 25% off, I believe, if you add everything up individually. So if you want a gallery of absolutely sick covers, as well as a couple of add-ons, enamel pins, etc., definitely recommend. And the Adopt-A-Page tier, which is one of my favorites in terms of just cool, unique stuff that only really we do. So you will get access to the book before anyone else, first and foremost. You'll get to pick out a page of your liking. We will print out a one-of-a-kind print of that page. We will send it to you along with your book. We will also put your name on the page in the book so that everyone knows that you adopted it, as well as on the inside front cover, it'll say that you adopted a page. On top of that, you get 2 copies of the book with your choice of covers. You get the sticker enamel pin, as well as the postcard. And I sign everything. If there's anything else I could give you, I would give it to you. But that's where we're at.
I love it. The whole the Adopt-A-Page thing, it is definitely super unique to you. I think it's a really cool idea that someone can go, hey, I'm the reason this page exists.
Yeah, that's sort of the idea behind it. It was also a solution for like traditional art. You have pages that you can sell, or that you can buy, you know, the original page as it was drawn on like Bristol board. And for digital comics, there's just not really a equivalent. Yeah. So we wanted to add something that allows people to have that same kind of experience, but you know, still taking advantage of digital art.
I love it. I don't know. It's such a cool thing. One thing I did want to ask about the poster. So the middle one here. Mm-hmm. Again, who's the artist on this one?
That's Eileen Wajaja.
So Eileen's cover here absolutely reminds me of one of those posters you'd see in a mechanic's shop.
Oh yeah,
or in some old guy's, you know, garage or whatever. The poster size that you're printing for it, does it happen to be one of those, you know, 3 foot tall overblown ones, or is it like a standard normal
so it's
poster?
Yeah, it's an 11 by 17, what you would normally expect from a poster. So
that's still quite a fairly large
yeah
poster.
We're gonna have to ship it in a big box, but yeah, it's this size. So
right on.
Yeah. And yeah, the sort of onus behind the thirst trap line of variants, which we're going to include with all of them, is this is like a photo that they would take and post on their Instagram, and that's a little bit more risque. And yeah, again, I think that anytime you have, you know, at least in my opinion, like nudity should, or you know, near nudity, whatever you want to call it, risque stuff like that. That should be like a choice the character makes, not just a thing we impose on the character. So this isn't like us. There's a reason that we made it, obviously, but it's more like they put themselves in that position and not we put them in that position.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too, like the concept behind it being a picture that they would have taken to post online or send to somebody is very much so like you get to go into the psychology of the character and think of like, how would this person want to show themselves? And in this first issue, the main character focuses on, she's actually a semi-professional or amateur personal trainer.
So she's kind of in that space that a lot of us are in, where it's what she wants to do, and she's sort of has a foot in the door. She's creating a profile for it, a clientele, but it's slow going. It's not her full-time gig yet. It's just something she's building toward. But yeah, she wants to be a personal trainer.
Absolutely. And I think what's cool about this shot in particular, or even this one, is the way that she's being shown as someone who would be very aware of how their body functions, the mechanics of their own body, the musculature. They're taking advantage of that. So she's showing off
that, it's definitely a she wants to look sexy thing, but it's also definitely a look at how ripped I am. I won't spoil anything, but like that sort of that concept, that idea feeds into the narrative and sort of becomes a plot point in of itself.
I love it. Well, Wells, you've definitely crafted a hell of a comic. I think, well, clearly 383 people agree. Hopefully many more soon will. I think, Wells, we've run through the majority of the major questions I've wanted to ask. I guess the fun stuff then is, for me, going to be like, I guess thinking about when you're writing these stories and then turning them over to artists and editors and stuff like that. When it comes to the feedback, did you get any feedback that you weren't expecting in a way that pleasantly surprised you, where you were like, hey, this could be a little different, but here's why, and here's how it serves a story? Like, did you get anything interesting back like that from your peers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's a big part of what they're there for. Krista was invaluable in terms of like, particularly in issue number 2, was invaluable in like some of the, how to phrase, some of the more intimate mechanics of what was happening. I think Bianca really just nailed the dynamic of the characters and sort of gave them so much personality that, you know, obviously I have a picture in my head of what I thought it would look like, but she just took that and ran with it. And made it even better than what I expected. She told me, I'm not used to working with this, you know, I'm used to working with like between 4 and 5 panels per page, and then she just kept adding panels to pages as she wanted to continue to add reaction shots and things like that. So yeah, she really understood, you know, the characters at their heart and wanted to show them off at sort of their own where they were at and how they were going to build into the rest of the story. And then Brianna basically came up with the concept and put most of herself into issue 3, I would say. So I'm looking forward to that. But even in issue 1, one of her big notes was, I like Lance, the guy that Dakota goes on a date with, but like, if what we're leading up to is she gets charmed by him because he, you know, isn't talking about himself all the time, and he you know, knows when to respect her boundaries and such, you know, what sets him apart, what makes her actually like him. And I was like, that's a good point. And so that led to the creation of an entire, you know, 2 pages of story of, you know, her prodding a little bit more into what's going on with him, and we, you know, getting charmed by the fact that he gets a little flustered talking about his interests, but is clearly very passionate about it. And yeah, it was a really cool experience getting to get feedback from a bunch of different sources and sort of build out the story really organically.
Sweet. Wells, I always like interviewing you because you always have, you take the time to think about good answers, and you're honest, and you are not afraid to share when either you do wrong, or more importantly, how you deal with that feedback and the kind of cool stuff you get. So folks out there who want to make comics, remember, it is important to have peers, whether that's an editor, an artist, whomever you're working with, or just
hire an editor. This is my soapbox. I'm in talks. I won't say I'm guaranteed, but I'm in talks to do a panel about this. My first ever panel about why you need an editor. So yeah, absolutely, hire an editor. It's as important as hiring a letterer. Don't do it yourself. Get a professional.
I love it. For those that they're watching, if you need an editor, a local editor to the Toronto area, or if you just happen to not, know any editors, Allison O'Toole is in Toronto, and Wells also does his own editing. So contact.
I'm a freelance editor. I have edited for a couple friends. Set the Hook from Chad Perkins is set to come out soon-ish. He's kept it in serious, but that's the first full series that I've worked on. Really excited to see how that turns out.
Congratulations! That is awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, we're down to about the last 10 and a half minutes or so.
Sure.
Wells, with a project like this that can be extremely personal, as we've mentioned, very intimate, obviously, meaning that in both ways you could take that. What I guess I wanted to ask was, given that you've now worked with your partner in a capacity that you likely haven't done before, not to my knowledge anyway,
right.
What has this experience taught you about your relationship and your dynamic with your partner, and how has that helped you, I guess, grow together, such that you're willing to share? Obviously, you don't have to do anything crazy.
Well, the only reason I felt in any way qualified to write a book like this is because Brianna and our relationship and how our dynamic has grown and developed over the years of dating and now being married for 3.5 years. Yeah. And we, in my relationships before meeting Brianna, there was usually a big problem with communication, just in terms of like not expressing each other's needs, closing off each other off a little bit too much, trying to stay a little bit separate, trying not to be vulnerable, and that winding up just hurting us worse than if we had taken the time to really express what we needed and what we wanted out of the relationship. So yeah, it was really that, like, growing as a person into the person that I needed to be to marry Brianna, is the only reason I felt remotely qualified to write a book that is this personal and this vulnerable, and that is at the core of its conceit about communication and relationships. Working with Brianna was great, because anytime you invite someone into a creative space, particularly a writing space, you can very even if you really like each other, you can very quickly start butting heads. It can turn into a bit of a pit fight, just because you're arguing a lot of the times without realizing it about fundamentally what you believe when you create characters, when you create conflicts, when you decide on what's important to talk about and what's not. I know Dalton and I have had times when I thought I wanted to murder Dalton over decisions made in Mechaton. That, like, we always wind up finding the right path. We always wind up finding a place that works for both of us and that is stronger because we hash it out like that. But the looks that I've given him, because I'm just like, no, dude, that doesn't make any sense. He's the villain. We can't do that. And then Dalton's like, he's not the villain just because he's a cop. And I'm like, you don't understand what I'm writing here. Yeah, issue 4, ACAB, all cars are beautiful. Anyway, if you've read Mechaton, you know. But yeah, no, it was a really fun experience. We did not wind up killing each other. It was great. There's definitely just some friction from, like, I had an idea of who the characters were and she had a separate idea of who the characters were, and we just needed to hash that out a little bit to make it work. But ultimately very smooth sailing. It wasn't too hard to see eye to eye. And, gives me confidence that, what we have ultimately really works. And that I'm not going to say we've figured out the secret to everything, but, like, we've definitely figured out what makes us gel. And part of the onus of making the series was I wanted to share that with people, because I feel like a lot of people do fall into the trap of they don't talk to their partner enough, or they don't talk to their partner enough about things that they find really vulnerable or embarrassing or stigmatizing, like sex. It's really easy to fall into a pattern. It's really easy to forget, why we need that from each other and what we're actually achieving. Part of Rita's conflict is that it's not that she minds sex, it's that the only time they ever interact in an intimate way is through sex, and sometimes she just wants to be held, and needs that kind of physical, validation. And it's important to understand that about each other, and it's really easy to forget to do that, even in long-standing relationships, even in healthy relationships. It's easy to overlook that kind of thing. So yeah, that was a major reason why I wanted to make it in the first place.
Damn, Wells. All right. I love it. I'm in. People need to go back this book. If you're watching on YouTube, the first link down below will take you right to the campaign, to this campaign right here for Smut, which, don't let the title in any way dissuade you. This is not just a porn book. It's going to be probably an emotionally devastating, really lovely, connecting book that happens to have some sex and nudity in it. So kids, if any kids are watching, don't get this book.
Yeah, definitely not. This is 18 plus. This is
Yeah.
In the States, it's a hard 18 plus. If you're, I don't know what the age of consent is in Canada, but whatever works for you.
I believe it's still 18 here.
If you can't walk into a gas station and buy Smut off the rack with your own ID, you shouldn't buy this book. If you can't do that, you can't have this book. But other than that, you should totally look at it. You should totally get it.
I love it. That being said, Wells, we've got 4 minutes left. Real quick for me, let people know what they can get for just the digital. What would the physical run them?
Yeah. Digital comes to $7. Gets you the book as well as the digital indie bundle, with the option to upgrade to the deluxe version for an additional $5. The physical starts at $14, but is currently on sale for $11, and gets you the book mailed to your door, plus shipping. Obviously, unfortunately, we all have to be beholden to the U.S. Postal Service, but I promise you, you will want this book in your hands and in your library. And if you are an international backer, I will sign your book for free. And if you get the signature, or if your tier has a signature, I will throw in some extra goodies for free. The international rate is garbage. I hate it. I hate that I have to charge people that much for postage. So I will make it worth your while.
Beautiful. And I can confirm, people, you really will. So that being said, Wells, with the few minutes I've got left with you, I will always ask, when you're not destroying yourself writing tons of comics, coordinating with teams of artists, and then coming to talk with people like me,
that's a
what
fun
is it?
Stuff. I like doing that. Let's be clear.
Fair. It's a lot. It is a lot, and I know that. What is it that currently you're enjoying on the level of reading?
Oh, reading? I just finished. What did I just finish? I had it in my.
Also, I'm just now noticing the table of books behind you, not the comics on the wall.
Oh yeah, no.
The table of books is impressive.
Yeah, I have way too many books back here. I've got a bunch that. Some of which I've read, a lot of which are waiting. I finished these two recently, All Against All and Hard Eyes. Highly recommend both. They are absolutely fantastic. I'm considering rereading Plume. That one is currently on Kickstarter, but I have the hardcover already. That one's one of my favorite books. This is on my list next. It's Somna. And I know I was reading a book. It makes me upset because I was enjoying it too. Give me 1 second.
The problem of both creating and reading comics.
There's too many books all the time.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I just finished reading Woven Press, Paloma, and Manhattan. They do this cool thing where they have one story and then the other one is upside down, so you start again from the other side.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, it's just a really interesting printing style. But yeah, it's they're pulpy noir stories based on cocktails, which I have been a bartender for several years, and yeah, that was right up my alley. I had to support it.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then in that case, Wells, my last question: who do you think we should have on the show next?
Oh, geez. If you can get Kaylin Smith, like I said, she's running the Plume Kickstarter right now. Yeah, one of the most impressive visual storytellers of our generation. I will go to bat for her every single time. But other than that, Leslie Julian is currently running Savage Wizard. I would definitely invite him on the show. I think he's fantastic, and that book is really, really cool. And this is a bit of it's not a conflict of interest, but it is self-serving a little bit. I'm running a cross-promotional campaign with CJ Hudson, who's doing A Tiny Island Over the Kingdom Under the Sea. And it's a really cool adult manga based on a Japanese legend that is written in sort of a prosy style. I like it a lot. And we are doing a crossover print. So anyone that gets the physical versions of Tiny Island and Smut gets a crossover print drawn by Rio Burton, who is and you should 100% spring for that.
Well, isn't that cool? All right, well, folks, A Tiny Island Over the Kingdom Under the Sea.
Mm-hmm. I shorten it to Tiny Island, but it's
yeah. So if you're into Smut and you happen to also be into fantasy and manga, go pick this up, and then you can enjoy 2 naughty, fun, potentially emotionally devastating books for a small fee, and support awesome comic creators. Love it. Awesome. Well, Wells, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show with us, man.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah, always will. And for the folks at home, if you haven't already, first link down below, if you're on Twitch or YouTube, click it, go back Smut, and enjoy. As always, comment down below what you think of Wells, his other books, his current books, maybe some of the books that he mentioned. Subscribe for more, and we will see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2. Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries.